Afternoon, and welcome to Jeff and the Rabbi. Well, Rabbi Freeman's doing a little thinking, and I like to do a little thinking every once in a while.
Watch out.
This could be dangerous.
Pretty soon your hair's going to start melting.
I know, this could be dangerous. But, I'm thinking back when I was young, way back in the late 90s, way back then, I noticed I don't think we had as many problems as the young people today. I think this was a little simpler. I know a lot of people say that. It was simpler back then. I don't remember too many of the issues that we had today. I can't recall in school when somebody didn't show up because they had restless leg syndrome, because you see that on TV now, RLS, or, they had a problem with it. I don't remember one time when any of my friends, male friends, came in a dress. Now, they might have gone home and they might have put on the sister's clothing. I just don't remember it. I don't remember too many people going to therapists every week with this issue and that issue and all these issues. Now, I have a lot of young friends today, obviously being a young guy myself.
Right.
And every one of them, I don't know of any of them that's not going to a therapist. They all have so many different problems and anxieties and different things. I know some of them that literally, they call them up and just, I'm a real good listener, not really, but they call me up thinking that I am, and they tell me, oh my God, my boss was so bad today. Don't they know they have to let me out? I know I missed 3 days, but I have anxiety. They have a right. I have a right to have anxiety. I never had a safe space. I never had a trigger word, and I'm thinking, if you even go into it for that, I don't remember too many kids at my age, the girls getting pregnant. But since all we did is talk about teen pregnancy for a while, a lot more kids are getting pregnant now. So my question is, what came first, the chicken or egg? Is the problem because we now have to talk everything out. Right. We have to discuss our issues, our problems. We had a new show, there was a reality show on teen pregnancy. Everybody talked about teen pregnancy, and then there's a lot of pregnant kids. I never knew any kid who went to rehab when I was in school. I'm sure some drank here and there, but it's now the in thing, and everybody goes to rehab because that's what we talk about. And is it possible that some of the issues that we're having today with the millennial generation that has to have safe spaces, can't hear racism, can't say anything that's bad, is it possible that just when we talk about it and make it a national discussion or a television discussion, that increases it? I mean, I have no doubt that people wanted to wear a dress, but all of a sudden 4 years ago, we started talking about transgenderism. And, it's like it's hard for me even to go buy, when I go to shop, I go in privately to buy my women's clothes. The line is so long there, I don't know what to do. You have to wait in line to get a nice pair of heels these days.
At the men's haberdashery.
Right. It's not even worth it to go get them anymore. So my question to you is this normal? And what does it say in the Torah about this?
Well, and just to add to what you're saying, we all know about the idea of copycat crime.
Absolutely.
Right? And there's been this whole push towards trying to not divulge, very, very unsuccessfully, by the way, trying to not divulge the details of the crime because they find out that when you put out all these lurid details, all of a sudden everyone wants to go out and do it.
Oh, it's true. I mean, I used to be able to, in the old days when we did streaking, I would streak out on the football field because I'd be on TV. Mm-hmm. Now they don't even show you on TV anymore because they don't want anybody else to do it.
Tell you about when I was a kid, streaking was, my mother was worried about the windows after they had been washed, and it was streaking, and she was like,
Good.
That was really bad.
Yeah.
Well, here is a good example. This is my contention is, and I'll show you in a minute why I believe it's the Torah's contention, that exposure to anything, even if it's in a negative way, the exposure brings a person closer to that thing. So, for example, the classic story in the Torah talks about a wayward wife. The husband said to her, "Do not be alone with this particular man." She is then observed going into seclusion with that very man that he told her not to be alone with, in front of witnesses. He told her in front of witnesses, "I don't want you to be seen alone with this man." And she goes into seclusion, and 2 witnesses see her. So now, there's a question. What happened in seclusion when she was, they see her going into the motel room with a guy, click,
right.
Okay? No one knows what goes on in that room, but there's an awful lot of suspicion. So they have an inquiry to find out. And the Torah has this special methodology. She drinks this special water. And even though she's protesting her innocence, if she's lying, she blows up. He does too, by the way, the guy that she was with.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty. Now, the next thing the Torah talks about is the Nazirite vows, where a person might swear off drinking wine and they'll allow their hair to grow long and so on and so forth. The question is asked, why do the Nazirite vows in the Torah follow immediately after the story of the woman who was in seclusion with the other man who blew up? Like, what does one really have to do with the other? The Talmud suggests that someone who observed what happened to the wayward wife might want to consider making vows to abstain from wine, meaning to take extra measures to exert self-control and limit their earthly desires. You might ask, why? I mean, they saw that the lady blew up when she committed adultery. That should be an object lesson. Do not commit adultery. Look what happens. The bad people, crime doesn't pay and all that. The answer is no. People forget about it. It says crime doesn't pay. For some reason, people fixate on the crime, and the doesn't pay part doesn't seem to really register.
That's true.
So when they walk away, they see what happened to this lady, how horrible it was. They, for some reason, are still closer to the crime because now the crime has become part of me because since I saw it, it is now inside of me. Before I ever saw it, before I ever heard about it, it was a foreign thing. And it wasn't really part of me. But once I've graphically seen it, even though I saw the whole horrible results of it. So here's an example. Crazy, but very, very real example. I get a phone call. I'm a rabbi. People call me. Things are going on, their families and stuff like that. They call. I don't really have a lot of advice for people, but sometimes they like to share. Just helps out.
Right.
Guy calls up and he tells me it came to his attention that his son, 7th, 8th grade, sent a text to a girl that he's having some difficulties with. And he said, he's very angry at her. He said, I'm going to find you, and when I do, I'm going to blow my head off, and my brains are going to get all over you. Right?
Wow, okay.
And then he also said, and I'm going to video it too. Right. So I don't know exactly how he intended to video it.
Well,
maybe set it up beforehand. Hopefully, yeah. Okay, so the father, understandably alarmed by that. Right.
A little alarmed.
Yeah. So the father, giving him a lot of credit, he dove right into it. We're going to get to this. We're going to talk about it. We're going to deal with it. Rolled up his sleeves, sat the kid down. So the first thing the father did is they got a whole list of indicators that your son is potentially suicidal. If your child is suicidal, there's indicators. So he went through the whole list of indicators. And he talked about it with his wife, and they didn't see any of the indicators.
Okay.
No indicator. The kid wasn't sullen. He wasn't withdrawn. None of this stuff. So they're trying to figure out, where's this coming from? His son has a video game.
Oh.
The video game is the current reincarnation of auto theft grand larceny.
Right.
Which is called something else now, I believe. Right. Yeah. But it's the current. So there is one point in the game, I am told, I've never done it myself, but there is one point in the game where when the cops have you cornered, you have a few options.
No.
One of the options is to blow your head off. Right? That's one of the options. That's one of the options they give you in the game. Right?
Wow.
The kid has the game, he plays the game. So, is the kid suicidal? Not necessarily. However, he plays a game, and the game has introduced to him one of the options of blowing his head off.
So that's an option he can use.
That's an option. Wow. Now he's upset with the girl. Well, that's an option. I got the idea from my video game. I'm going to blow my head off, and it's going to get all over you, and boy, are you going to be upset then. What a mess that's going to be.
Wow.
Right? So, where did that come from? Exposure. Simply put, exposure. The kid shows no signs whatsoever, and still does not. She did not show any of the signs that are commonly associated
I
with.
assume they've talked to somebody to get.
Yeah, no, they went to a professional right away. They immediately went to a professional. They, they were asked, has your kid been doing like this? Has your kid been acting like that?
That's
they really
scary.
Right? So that what bothered the father. Because if the kid had exhibited any of the signs, which maybe they missed, but they went back over it, they could not see any of the indicators. So he's really bothered, like, where's the kid out of the clear blue coming up with this? So he found it in the game. In the game, it offers that as one of the options. Police got you. What do? Before they get you, you can, surrender, blow your head off,
Wow. Wow.
So this idea of the suggestion of something, once a person's now, of course, so the father had to sit down and he had to explain to the kid, like if you were to do that, do you know how badly everyone would feel? And do you understand what impact that would have? And do you understand, like, that your life would be terminated? Like the kid in 8th grade, they didn't really get that. Like, the reason is because you blow your head off.
Start over again.
You start over again. Right. See, although he technically understood,
right,
but he didn't really understand.
Think that one through too
He
much.
didn't really think it through, right? He didn't really think through that, like, you can't replay the game if you actually do that. You can't start again.
Wow. So I guess I've been over exaggerating with my restless leg syndrome. I'm fine.
Yeah,
my
right.
legs, just because I had an itch, I'm fine.
Right. That's right.
Good enough. No. Wow. Okay. Well, mine wasn't as bad, but still. But it's scary because you're right. He would never have thought of that.
So and then by the way, then he goes and he says this to this girl. Of course, I suppose the girl maybe have passed it on to her parents or teachers or something.
Right.
Now the kid's got a whole thing going on in his life, and you know what's going to happen now to the kid? They're probably going to send him for group, and he's going to sit in a group with a whole bunch of
everybody
other.
Who was
and then everybody, and then the kid's going to go learn about all the different ways to commit suicide, and
But I see it obviously to that extent. I see it all the time with these young friends I have. All of them have this weird kind of. Everyone has anxiety, an anxiety disorder. Listen, I'm sure I have. I mean, to me, that's called life. I mean,
right.
Okay. I mean, I'll hear on the phone. Oh God, today it was so horrible, and I bumped my car into this, and I did this. Oh my God, it was the worst day of my life. And I'm going, wow. I mean,
right.
I think that's the life, and I think what happens is I've seen these people all react in such weird ways that we would have just taken up. Hey, punch yourself in the arm,
right.
Walk around, and I think it's because, as you said, it's talked about so often. It's everybody has anxiety. Everybody has to go to a doctor and get pills for their depression. So I think it becomes it's self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's the way it happens.
And there's a methodology to do this. You want to introduce something. New concept, new belief, new product. Mm-hmm. You introduce it even negatively, even if it shows up negatively, but
Absolutely
you can get it into people's consciousness. Then even though you show how ugly and dirty it is, but it's now in there. Once it's in there, you can move it forward. The next thing you know, it's talked about. The next thing you know, it seems to be talked about incessantly. And the next thing you know, it's respected, it's embraced, it's a way of life, it is changed, the whole landscape, and so on and so forth. So all of this is about exposure. So we have a big problem. And the problem is exposure, we're image driven. I was just thinking about this. There's a show going on, we're coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia. So Atlanta, Georgia, one of the most distinguished museums in Atlanta is the High Museum of Art.
Right.
Very, very respected museum. The High Museum of Art is doing an Andy Warhol presentation right now. And of course, that Andy Warhol was all about images. Mm-hmm. And, we all know the famous Andy Warhol images and everything like that. But what Andy Warhol figured out, I don't know if you call it genius or intuition or what, but he realized that we have become a culture that is image-driven. It's image-driven. Everything we do in our culture is image-driven. Put up a picture of something, picture of a person, a poster, a logo. We're all very image-driven. We're not idea-driven. We are image-driven. then what you do is you try to associate the image with something. It could be a Campbell's soup can, right? Or it could be like or the pair of lips on the Rolling Stones or whatever. But you want to associate the image, and you create a reaction to an image, whatever that might be. And hopefully you can drive that image so that to the point where you're walking down the aisle, you pick up the item that has the image on it, or you want, or you feel good, or you have some type of innate reaction to an image. So I was thinking about this. I was thinking about some children that I know that live in an imageless culture. An imageless culture. Because in their home, they are primarily unplugged.
So you don't mean my home. We're not talking about my house.
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
So they don't have
So you're
television.
using me as an example. No.
They're not connected to the internet, right?
Yep.
They primarily don't subscribe to newspapers, magazines, right? So they are not driven by images, primarily.
Right.
Now, they'll see images around, but you see the whole thing with images is they have to become all-pervasive, and the connotation with the image has to go along with it. So they might see an image on a package or a box,
Right.
but as a matter of fact, where they live, there's even, in their culture, they even try to keep the advertising kind of what they can, they censor the advertising. So if there are images that they feel are like outside of the pale, too suggestive, too seductive, they won't carry the items in the grocery stores if they feel that the advertising or the packaging is inappropriate. So it's really interesting. They are not image driven. Because they're not image driven, they have to become idea driven. Because what else do they have?
Right, that's right.
What else do they have in their life, right?
Right.
So people, they have to hear thoughts and ideas. And their culture, develops around a lot of likes and dislikes and what people are saying. They listen to what people are saying, what's going on. That's kind of interesting. Their kids, they do a very interesting thing. They play in the street. It's really interesting.
Used to happen.
They play in the street. No, I'm not saying that they're all a bunch of angels. I mean, they'll throw rocks at each other.
Right.
And they'll chase after each other with sticks, and they make groups and gangs, and they have wars and all that type of stuff. They do all that stuff.
Right.
And and they go poke around and they get into other people's things. I mean, they're not angels, right? They're human beings, but they are not an image-driven culture. So if you show them something, they don't have a natural response to it. They don't want to buy a particular item because an image has told them what to do. So therefore, they are insulated. They're insulated, and that's in a certain way, they got their eyes and their ears filtered out. And this is where we have to realize, and this is where the whole Warhol show is coming from. This is where Andy Warhol said, the image, we have become an image-driven culture, and there's not too much thought that goes along with that. So we are really sort of like Pavlov's dogs, They play a certain sound, or they put out a certain smell, or they put out a certain visual image, and everyone is going in a certain way. This is what's happened, and this is how our politics is being run. They created a negative image. This one shows pictures of this candidate frowning. That's a picture of the candidate like that. Then that's from the other side, right? And the other one, and the one smiling or thinking or being, that's the supporters, right? And it really doesn't matter. They don't really have to say anything. You can say anything you want with it. Like you show the person frowning. Maybe the context of the picture was, what do you think about hacking babies to death? Person frowning, right? Well, don't vote for them. Look at that picture of them frowning. Right. And there's no context. Context doesn't mean anything. It's just image-driven. So if you shoot the image, it doesn't matter the context. It doesn't matter what was going on. No background, no nothing. Totally image-driven. And for us, the Torah says, if you see an image, it impacts you. and it becomes part of you. And therefore, you want to try to avoid negative images. You want to try to avoid the images of things that you believe are negative. So, adulterous woman, even adulterous woman getting her comeuppance. Don't look at it, because that's adulterous woman. You want to avoid adultery? Don't see adulterers. That's the way. You want to avoid suicide? Don't see it, don't hear it, don't talk about it. The more you talk about it, our society, let's talk about it, let's process it, let's hear more about it, let's understand, let's come to understand it. The more we come to understand it, the more we do it, whatever the it is.
Well, you sound like probably the most anti-progressive human being that I've ever seen in my life or heard from in my life.
Yeah.
You were literally...
They call it regressive.
You are regressive. Degressive, regressive.
Ungressive. Aggressive. Yeah.
I don't know how you leave here and go down the street without having kids and students scattering into their safe zones and protective huts and things like that, because you are dangerous.
Right.
You're literally telling people you don't need... You don't need to feel for people that are wearing dresses. You don't need to understand them. That's their problem. You don't want to talk about it.
Don't see it. Don't see it.
Wow.
Basically, you could sum it up like this. I'm for putting everyone back in the closet.
No.
What you want to do in your closet, that's your business. Do it in your closet. But don't put it in someone else's face. Now you'll say, well, it's up to them not to react to it. It's up to them.
Well, no, they won't even say that anymore.
Right.
No, they have
I
to
can be in your face, and you've got to accept it. You've got to not react to it. And the truth is, no. And it's not true. And you do react to it. And the proof is, because the same people that want everything in their face, they don't want to hear, for example, the speaker who is saying something that they don't want to hear. They don't want that heard. That's insulting to me. That's intimidating to me. Now, if someone else says, I think what you're doing is insulting or intimidating, no, you got to live with that.
I was almost thinking about shouting you down right now.
Right.
Because I was kind of but you're right, and that's the whole point. Like example, we just this week had this Paris Accord thing where Donald Trump didn't sign the Paris Accord. Imagery is, oh my God, because it's called the Paris Climate Accord.
Right.
If you're against it, you're for polluting the world.
Right. He's just like,
you want to destroy the world. You want to blow the world up.
Right.
Now, I've had conversations with some of my family members this week, and I said, do you know what's in it? I don't care what's in the Accord. It's, you want to destroy the planet. No, that's not what it's about. And I think that is a huge issue. Before we knew about this horrible, dangerous climate change, which came from global warming, and I'm not sure how they made that transition, but they did, I was okay. I ate meat. I wasn't worrying about the flatulation of the cows. I was driving my SUV, and truthfully, the temperature was going up, it was going down, it was whatever. But now, you're right, with the imagery of destroying this earth and everything else that we're doing, it's a big deal now.
But you know the Paris Accord is a good thing? Because everybody agreed to it.
That's exactly right.
How can you presume not to agree to something everybody else agreed to?
If Leonardo DiCaprio, who's pretty smart, they said it. If George Clooney said it, if Bruce Springsteen said it, and this is what's told me, how can you disagree? Everybody in my bubble, everybody agrees to this. So how can you be? And they were laughing at me like I'm some idiot. I said, well, why do you agree?
Because that's an adjunct to the image-driven culture, because we all expect and accept that the image tells us how to think and what to feel. So if you're going against that, this is this is a horrible thing. Can't do it.
I mean, that is true, and it's everywhere today. I mean, again, I'm almost scared to be sitting next to you because the way you answered. I mean, I wouldn't have said what you said. I would have felt it, but it's true. Why do we have to hear about it? I don't really care about the things that people would say I'm just not sensitive. But I'll get on the phone. Usually, the phone's about over here at this point when they're telling me all the issues and this happened, and I don't really care. And they would say I'm just an unfeeling kind of person, not as bad as you. I mean, because I didn't go that far.
Right.
But it's difficult. But I see where you're coming from, because
if you don't even see it, you don't even have to worry about whether you feel for it or not.
I guess. Yeah.
Right. But I guess that my intention is, if you see it, you will feel for it one way or another. And therefore, let's take it all the way back to the tree of knowledge, good and evil. Let's go
Okay.
all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay? You know, Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden, and they're told, don't eat from that tree. As long as they're in the garden, and they're told not to eat from that tree, you know, they observed it for a while, and then they broke down and they ate from the tree. The difference between before the tree and after eating from the tree was that before the tree was external to them. Before
Right.
they ate from it.
Right.
After they ate from the tree, it was internal to them. And this is before we are exposed to something, it is external. And you have a way to evaluate it. Once you have been exposed to it, and this is completely the same, I don't care if it's like doing heroin, right?
Right.
If I've never heard or seen anyone that's done heroin,
That's a good point.
then that's very external to me. Once I'm exposed to people, even if I see the negative side of it, but once you're exposed to it, you already are a step closer to actually doing it, even if your exposure is in a negative sense.
And it's very interesting, and I think that's what's going on in the past 8 years, like with drugs, or with marijuana, for example, which, you know, when I was growing up, people smoked pot. It happened all the time. But once it became so exposed after the president said it's just like smoking cigarettes, then everybody is doing it. There is no stigma to it,
Right.
but everybody knows about it. So now they're exposed to it. And yes, when you're exposed to marijuana, soon you're going to be exposed to cocaine, and soon you're going to be exposed to meth, and then eventually heroin. And that's how it's going to work.
Why wouldn't you want to do it? You know, why wouldn't you want to? Because it's everywhere. It's all pervasive. That's why once upon a time, everybody smoked cigarettes because everybody smoked
And that's
cigarettes.
true.
So when you got to a certain age, it was presumed you start smoking because it was all pervasive. What do? They start trying to put it in the closet. Get out of the building.
That's a very good
Get
point.
hidden away.
Very good
Can't
point.
do it on an airplane. Can't do it here. Can't do it there. Try to keep it away. And most importantly, the first thing they did was no advertising.
That's true.
No advertising.
Wow, that's a
You
good point.
can't see the Marlboro man smoking.
That's a good
It's
point.
that you got to take away the image. Just take away the image, and after. So that means you want to get someone to do something, give them an image of it. You want to ban it, you want to
Take it away.
take away the image.
So little Jimmy, if you're thinking about putting on that little tutu tomorrow, put it in the closet. Don't worry about it. No, just don't. You don't have to do it. Go back in the closet.
I'm waiting to see when the images come out of the people smoking pot, when they start having pot advertisements, and you know.
That'll be soon.
Yeah, at that point, of course, then everyone's going to have
Well,
to
it pretty
do it.
much is having. We have Facebook and everything else now, so you see it. Those images are there everywhere. Anyway, so
You see it.
no, that's
For
fine.
the people. But if the people who are unplugged, have a right and an ability
That's a
to
good
actually
point.
think.
Wow, that's actually a very good point. I think I really did learn something today.
All right.
I've learned. I hope you did too as well. All right, we'll be back next week with less images, but we'll be back.
Good. Well,
Just us.